Hey, Allan, you deserve a tall glass of shut up juice, so can you just shut up for a second? I told him his theories about the keys were absurd. I was right, he was wrong. I said he'd lose his keys.
No, you were not right, and I was not wrong, and that's a cheap shot, and I won't stand for it.
Well, who won, brother?
You should not be taking cheap shots. I've only been a professor for 51 years.
On this program, I've never been able to finish a thought.
How many books have you published? No, because you're personally attacking me again. Say whatever you want, but I'm not going to stand for personal
attacks. Brother, you got it wrong.
Say
you were
whatever you want.
Preposterously and stupidly wrong.
Man, poor Allan, man. You just crushed that professor, Cenk. Crushed the professor on Piers Morgan's show. It was a panel of Democrats, a panel of men who wanted to figure out what the hell is going on. What did Kamala Harris do wrong? Why didn't the Democrats win the presidential election? Now look, this fiery exchange between Cenk and Allan Lichtman, the purveyor of the key system to determine who the presidential victor will be. It all started with him basically admitting that maybe his keys are a little faulty, but not really. He kind of made excuses for himself, and 100%. I think, and that is what triggered you. So let's hear what he had to say, and then we'll get to Cenk's reaction to him.
I am forthrightly willing to admit I missed this election. I still think I actually had 10 out of 10 before. I think I was right about 2000, but we're not here to litigate that. I still think it's a pretty good record. Now, I think two things are operating here. Number one, I was incredibly critical at the time of the spineless, cowardly Democrats openly and viciously trashing their elected president and their elected nominee right out there in the open. My keys are based upon the proposition that a pragmatic, rational electorate decides whether or not the White House party is governed well enough to get 4 more years. That was exploded this time by a new wave of disinformation that we've never seen before.
Before Kamala Harris became the Democratic nominee as a result of Joe Biden dropping out of the race, something that, as you can tell, Lichtman is not a big fan of, Biden was losing by a lot to Donald Trump. Their internal polling indicated that if Biden stayed in the race, it was likely that that Trump was going to win, what, 400 electoral votes?
Yeah, over 400 electoral college votes, and that Biden had approximately a 0% chance of winning. But you saw him there saying, no, if you guys hadn't trashed Biden, he had it.
My keys are perfect, it's your fault. Okay, yeah. The keys failed because of you. All right, so anyway, Cenk, first of all, to your credit, Cenk, Juan Williams is also on the panel, and Juan Williams seemed to be a little more, he was pointing fingers at the electorate even more than Allan Lichtman, and that bothered me a lot, and you called him out on that. But for the purposes of this discussion, let's just focus on your exchange with Lichtman because you called him out, and I think what you said here was important, so let's watch.
You're blaming disinformation. There was disinformation. There was the cats and the dogs nonsense. The points you're making about undocumented immigrants, I agree with, Allan, okay? But that didn't cost the election. The people who are at fault are not other people. It is the candidate, Kamala Harris, the previous candidate, Joe Biden, Democratic Party, Democratic leadership. You guys don't want to admit that they're the problem. They're the cancer in the Democratic Party. The most popular part of the Democratic Party is the populist left. That is the Bernie Sanders 2016 campaign. That part says, let's do super popular economic proposals like paid family leave, higher minimum wage, universal health care, public option. Let's do all of these things. And the establishment goes, no, our corporations don't want that. Our donors don't want that. So we'll just do identity politics.
I think that's the longest period of time you've been able to speak on Piers Morgan's show without Piers Morgan interrupting you. So congratulations.
Yeah, I think it's because he agreed with me on that one.
Yeah, 100%. You could tell he's like kind of nodding along with you, which was interesting to see. But look, I feel bad for Lichtman, right? Because he's put a lot of weight and a lot of his personal identity and his own view of his own success behind this system that he's put together, the keys which help him predict who's gonna win the presidential election. And he cares about that way more than anything else. So that bias shows in pretty much every interview he does. And to your credit, you also said, I feel bad, like I'm gonna stop picking on you.
Am I not merciful?
But you also did this, Cenk. You also did this. Let's watch.
The difference that I bring to the table is a track record of successful prediction based upon how American presidential elections have previously worked as pragmatic decision-making on whether or not the White House party has governed well enough. And then my analysis is based upon what's changed, what's shattered the pattern of 160 years of history. So I have a base for my analysis. I'm not just doing Monday morning quarterbacking. Cenk, you need to learn some manners. Your act is getting really thin.
I mean, brother, I said what was going to go wrong. It did go wrong. I was right. You were wrong in this election, spectacularly so, with your so-called keys. And now you come and tell us not the Monday morning.
And unlike you, I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong.
You do need to learn a little bit of manners.
No, I've been a bad boy.
You were bad. You were bad. You were a little. That was a bit much.
Okay, no. So let me now break it down, because look, guys, it's easy to make fun of Allan Lichtman. He got it massively wrong and kind of hilariously wrong, and he was so insistent. That's why it's even funnier. But there's a serious part to this, and it's really important actually, and I don't want you guys to miss that. So. Look, his keys are based, there's two giant problems with his keys. One is it's irrational to say that any set of factors is definitive. You can't say that it's definitive. And the point I was making to him, remember the original debate was when Biden was still in the race. I'm like, yes, but if the candidate has dementia, then your keys are not relevant because there's a superseding factor. And he's like, no, it doesn't matter. And I said, okay, let's take an extreme example. What if the candidate punched a baby in the face every single day? Would that matter? He said, no, it wouldn't.
Oh, come on.
I mean, come on, right? So like the guy is inherently unreasonable. And the reason why I don't mind pointing this out, one of the reasons is because he's so arrogant and overconfident, and he was selling hopium to a lot of people. And they needed that hopium. But that hopium was, and this is the most important part, leading them in the wrong direction. That they were all going, oh no, the professor says Biden should stay in. The professor says it doesn't matter if the candidate has dementia. The professor says that he's always right, and even if the candidate's brain falls out of his ear in the middle of a debate, or he melts on screen, it still doesn't matter that because of the keys, they'll vote for the blob. But most importantly, a lot of the keys are about incumbency. And he's like, if you pick the incumbent will win. But that's actually a terrible advice in this day and age. He's looking at elections from decades ago when there was no internet, when local politics was king, when you could actually have the party machine have a message that goes only in mainstream media, and mainstream media would then affect the election results. But now because of online media, none of that applies anymore. The incumbents don't have an advantage anymore. They have an albatross around their neck because they're responsible for every policy position that goes wrong. So, but he did not want to adjust. And guys, the number one reason why you need to know all of this is because in the next election cycle, they're gonna come at you with the same BS. And they're gonna tell you, oh, we got keys, we got cars, we got oranges, and we got professors, and we got mainstream media people, and we got Queen Latifah, and we got all these people, and they tell you, you should pick the most corporate Democrat, the most establishment one, the one who takes the most corporate money, the most donor money. Oh, don't go populist, trying to appeal to the average man. What a terrible idea. Just trust Allan Lichtman's keys that incumbents and Democratic leaders know best. Well, if they know best, why did they lose to Trump twice? Why was Allan Lichtman so wrong? So it's not just about beating up on poor Allan Lichtman, who of course has to be mortified now at how preposterously wrong he was. It's about making sure that we don't make that same mistake again.
If Allan Lichtman would just admit, just have a little bit of humility and just say, look, I got it wrong. I got it wrong this time.
Period.
That's it, it's okay, it's totally fine. People get things wrong time to time. I get things wrong time to time.
We say it all the time, it's not a big deal.
Look, for me, it's not even about his keys system. It's not about what he prefers in a Democratic candidate. I don't care about that. He's an American. He gets to have his own opinions. That's totally fine. The thing for me is just the smugness, you know, his unwillingness to even hear a differing opinion or argument without responding with like this sarcasm and like this elitist attitude. Like that's the thing that bothers me about Allan Lichtman. Like there's too much ego in his interactions with other people.
Yeah, 100%. In Turkish, there's a saying this is both wrong and strong. Like,
ooh, I like that.
Yeah, but why did Allan Lichtman, rando professor, get all this airtime? So that is actually the more important part of this story. It's because in the beginning, before he came to online media, mainstream media put him on air 24/7.
He was a darling.
Over and over again. Why? They could pick any professor, and there's tons of professors who thought that Joe Biden was going to lose. But mainstream media wanted Joe Biden. And that's back when they were pretending that he was young and dynamic. Oh, Mika and Joe told him we had secret meetings, and oh my God, he solved the theory of relativity all over again in our secret meetings. Behind the scenes, he's so dynamic. So in order to perpetuate that lie, they're like, oh, that dumbass professor thinks a bunch of keys is going to predict that Biden's going to win, even though it makes no sense. So, come on. Yeah, Professor Lichtman, everybody listen to Professor Lichtman.
So look, okay. I think the way you're framing it is unfair. I think oftentimes, you know, the hosts and maybe even the producers who staff these cable news shows, they're looking for their own hopium. You get what I'm saying?
No, I get you, and it's not a conspiracy, Anna. So I want to be clear, and thank you for making that point. It's not like MSNBC and CNN call each other and they're like, okay, should we bring on the nutty professor, right? And so. No, it's groupthink. Groupthink is, it's gotta be Biden. It's gotta be Biden. Who's saying it's Biden? Oh, Allan Lichtman's saying it's not Biden. Bring him on. Biden. Then, okay, Biden's out. Then Kamala, bring him back on. Bring him on. Kamala. It's groupthink. And so, and you know, I'm kidding around with the dumb and the nutty. He's not dumb, he's a professor.
He's written a lot of books.
So many books. If you write a lot of books, that means you're smart. It doesn't matter what's in the books, okay?
I actually think it does mean you're smart. Writing a book is real hard.
Okay. But guys, look, it's not about poor Allan Lichtman. I'm happy to leave him alone. He's just a random civilian that the mainstream media picked out of the woodworks to convince you to vote for Biden and Kamala Harris, right? So, and he's, of course, he's not dumb. He's a professor and he's, et cetera. The reason why I go in that route, guys, is because when you're that arrogant and you're that wrong, if you can't bring humility and say, I am adjusting now because it turns out I was wrong about the power of incumbency and I don't want Democratic voters to make that mistake again, then again, bygones be bygones, God bless, no problem at all. Let's move on. But when he comes back on, and I guarantee you 3 years from now, they'll have Professor Lichtman back on telling you it's gotta be Buttigieg. It's like my keys say Buttigieg. Don't pick anyone like Bernie Sanders. My key says Buttigieg or Newsom, right? Well, we're gonna have that fight all over again. So that's the problem.